Many of us do not understand that Daniel is the prophecy that God gave to us. Now, it was a sealed book, not revealed for his time, but for later days. Now, what Revelation, the book of Revelation is understanding the interpretation of the book of Daniel. Now, a lot of us try to understand Revelation without seeing the sealed book that God revealed to us through Daniel. So before we get into this, Daniel is the prophetic word of God, and Revelation is the interpretation of the book of Daniel. Let's get into it, because now we're going to get a strong foundation of understanding who Babylon is today. In the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 2, King Nebuchadnezzar receives a vision that no one else can understand, nor has no one else been able to see. Nebuchadnezzar was searching for the interpretation of this dream. Now, none of his sorceries, none of the magicians, no one else that was around him was able to give the interpretation of this dream until Daniel. God, the God of Daniel, the God of our forefathers, the God of wisdom, the God who gives wisdom and interpretation to those who ask and seek. God gave Daniel the interpretation of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream when death was on the line, when Nebuchadnezzar was about to slay everyone because no one could figure out the interpretation. God, in his infinite, mighty understanding and wisdom and knowledge, gave the interpretation to Daniel to reveal the dream that King Nebuchadnezzar saw. Why is this so important? Because in Daniel chapter 2, verse 28, look what it says. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. And the latter days is resembling the last days, or days in the future. Now, in Daniel chapter, we're going to jump ahead. If you want to read the rest, you can. Daniel chapter 2, verse 31, we're going to read what the vision was and the interpretation of it. In verse 31, you, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. The image's head was of fine gold, and its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You watched while the stone cut out without hands was struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them into pieces. This is the interpretation of the dream, O king. The interpretation of it in verse 37, you, O king, are the king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand and has made you ruler over them all. So the head of gold, which was received in the dream, the statue, the head of gold was King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Now in verse 38, it says, but after you will arise another kingdom inferior to yours. Then a third kingdom of bronze shall rule over all the earth. And a fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch and shall shatter the rest of the kingdoms into pieces. Whereas you saw the feet and the toes, partly of the potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. So the kingdom shall be partly strong of clay, and the kingdom shall be partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cling to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to the people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. That was the rock that broke the entire image of the statue, which is Jesus Christ coming back as Lord of Lords and King of Kings. So now we have to understand who is the head of gold, which we know is Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, and who were the kingdoms that rose up after to take over this kingdom. What we just read was that after Nebuchadnezzar, a kingdom is going to come after him, and then after that kingdom, another kingdom, which is going to be strong, and a third kingdom which shall rule over all the earth, a fourth kingdom which shall crush all the other kingdoms together. And then this fourth kingdom will not be destroyed until the coming of Christ. Now, we have to understand that this fourth kingdom is Babylon. Now, we have to understand who became the last kingdom to conquer Babylon. It's fairly simple. This is historical. In Ecclesiastic, it says, everything that once was before will be again, and everything that happened before will happen again, for there is nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 10, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 7. I might get those a little wrong, but if you continue to read, you'll see it. If you look up King Nebuchadnezzar, what year did he reign? King Nebuchadnezzar reigned in 605 to 539 BC. Now, what was the kingdom that took over Babylon? The Medo-Persians. Medo-Persia took over Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom, in 539 to 331 BC. Now, what kingdom, what's the third kingdom that was spoken of in the prophecy that would take over Medo-Persia, the second kingdom? I made a mistake, but it was actually Greece, which were the Macedonian Empire, Alexander the Great. When Alexander the Great began to rule for Greece, he took over the Medo-Persians around 331 BC to 168 BC. So this was the third kingdom that took over Babylon, which was Medo-Persians, which then became the Macedonian Empire, the Greeks. It was Rome. In 146 BC, Rome took over the Macedonians, which was the third kingdom, the Greek Empire. So to basically sum it up, because I did mess up pretty bad in the video, it goes Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar, his kingdom, the Medo-Persian Empire take over Babylon, and then the third kingdom that takes over the second kingdom, which is Greece takes over the Medo-Persians, and then the kingdom that takes over the third kingdom, which is the fourth kingdom, is Rome. Now, because remember, head of gold, chest, belly. Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, Medo-Persia, belly is Greece, the legs are Rome, iron. And guess what? The iron was never defeated or conquered by any other nation, but when it became to the feet, it said the feet were iron mixed with mere ceramic clay. So that means Rome was never defeated, but divided. And this happened in 285 AD when Rome was divided. Now, why is this important, do you say? Why do you bring up something from the Old Testament? Well, because this is concerning the latter days that are getting ready to come. And we have to understand who Babylon is, because in Revelation, it talks about Babylon, and we have to understand who she is. Now, when we understand that, before the coming of Christ, which is the rock that destroys the big idol that was made, before the coming of Christ, who is the kingdom that's going to be reigning and ruling before Christ comes? And we see historically that it's going to be Rome. And ever since the empires that destroyed Babylon, the new Babylon that has conquered the rest of the kingdoms, the fourth kingdom, which devoured the rest of the kingdoms, was Rome, going exactly as it was in the prophecy of Daniel chapter 2. Now in Daniel chapter 7, Daniel received another vision of 4 beasts. These 4 beasts are going to represent the 4 kingdoms that we just learned. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 4, it says the first beast that he seen was like a lion. Verse 5, and suddenly another beast came out and it was a bear. And then a third beast came and it was like a leopard. The first beast is Nebuchadnezzar. The second beast that is a bear is the Medo-Persians. And the third beast, the leopard, is Greece. Now the fourth beast, look at what it says about the fourth beast. In verse 7, after this in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. What had iron legs? In the Nebuchadnezzar vision, the fourth kingdom. Now it's saying the fourth beast has iron teeth similar to the iron legs. And it was different from all the other beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns from all the other beasts. And it had 10 horns. This fourth beast had 10 horns. Now, where else do we see in Revelation where it talks about a beast having 10 horns? So now we understand that a beast is a kingdom. How do we know this? In Daniel chapter 7, verse 23, look at what it says. The fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth. So a beast, like the beast in Revelation, it's a kingdom. People just read Revelation and see all this symbolic imagery and does not know, understand it. But understand, when you come to the book of Daniel, the prophecy, you see what it's pointed to in the interpretation of the prophecy. Verse 23, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom, which shall be different from all the other kingdoms. It shall devour the whole earth. Look at verse 24. Then the 10 horns are 10 kings. Where do we see in 10 horns and 10 kings? Go to Revelation chapter 13, verse 1. In Revelation chapter 13, verse 1, it says, then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast. What do we know what a beast is? A kingdom. I saw a kingdom rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. What are the 10 horns? 10 kingdoms, according to Daniel 7, verse 24. So, and what do we remember? Who was the fourth beast? Rome. If we continue to read Daniel chapter 7, verse 24, it says, and another shall arise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and he shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak presumptuous words against the Most High, and he shall persecute the saints of the Most High. Now, when the kingdom of Rome, when the kingdom of Rome, the iron legs was divided with the ceramic clay, when the kingdom of Rome was divided from Western Europe to Eastern Europe, a division happened between Rome. Now, Western Europe was conquered, and 3 hills, 3 kingdoms of Rome were subdued, trampled underfoot. Now, if you look up today, how much hills, which represents kingdoms, how much hills there is in Rome today, there's 7 hills in Rome. And look what it says in verse 24. Then the 10 horns are 10 kingdoms, who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall arise after them, which is a little horn. He shall be different from the first ones, and he shall subdue 3 kings. What's 10 minus 3? Come on, let's do some math. 10 minus 3 is 7. 7 kingdoms left, 7 hills. Rome has 7 hills left. We can understand historically, understanding who the beast of Revelation is. It's Rome. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast, Rome, rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns crowns. Remember, what were the horns? Kingdoms. and on the kingdoms on his head a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon, which was Satan, gave him his power and his throne and great authority. And I saw as one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded. This is entire another conversation. I will make another video on this, but I gave you guys, by the grace of God, a foundation to build you off of if you take heed to what you're hearing, to understand who Babylon is in Revelation with that interpretation.